Billionaire Isaiah Kingston discovers his maid's daughter hiding in his kitchen, stealing leftovers. And what follows isn't anger, but a decision that will change both their lives forever. In a house built on silence and wealth, a child's stomach growls louder than the ticking clocks. 10-year-old Maya Jackson hides in the shadows of a billionaire's kitchen, chasing scraps meant for the trash because hunger doesn't follow rules. But when the man who owns everything catches the girl who owns nothing, one moment of desperation will shatter the distance between them. Behind the marble and gold lies a truth neither of them is ready to face. This isn't just a story about a maid's daughter caught with a bowl of leftovers. It's the story of how one small act of hunger fed the heart of a broken man. And before I forget, where are you watching from today? Leave a comment below. Enjoy the story. A 10-year-old girl knew that hunger was the sharpest sound in a silent house. Maya Jackson held her breath, pressing herself flat against the cold, humming metal of the industrial pantry freezer. Just one more minute, she prayed. Just let Miss Geraldine's heavy footsteps fade down the marble hall. The kitchen in Mr. Kingston's house was bigger than her entire apartment. It was a huge room of stainless steel, shining copper pots, and black granite counters that always felt cold. Maya was small for her age, with hair pulled into two neat braids, and she knew every shadow in this room. She had mapped them out night after night. Her mother, Tiana, was a maid here. She was the one who made the floors shine so bright you could see your face in them. Tonight, her mother was upstairs on the 3rd floor, turning down the heavy blankets in the 20 guest rooms that were never used. She would be exhausted. Her feet would be aching. Her cough, the one she tried to hide, would be worse. Maya's stomach twisted with a familiar hollow ache. It was 9:04 p.m. The pantry door clicked shut. Silence. Maya counted to 60, her lips moving without a sound. Then she slipped from her hiding place. Her bare feet made no noise on the polished stone. She moved past the giant 6-burner stove and the empty butcher block island. Her target was the steel cart parked by the service entrance. It was the discard cart. Ms. Geraldine, the head housekeeper, was strict. All leftover food from Mr. Kingston's lonely dinner or the staff's lunch was to be scraped into a compost bin. But the kitchen staff, led by the kind cook Ms. Rose, often forgot. They would leave half a sandwich, a few roasted potatoes, or the crust of a small tart on a plate, covered loosely with foil. They left it there for an hour, just in case Mr. Kingston wanted a late snack. He never did. Maya knew this. She also knew that at 9:15 p.m. Ms. Geraldine would return, look at the cart, and then angrily scrape everything into the bin. Maya's hands trembled. She saw it. A small bowl of macaroni and cheese, barely touched. It was from the staff lunch. Her eyes filled with tears. She loved macaroni and cheese. Beside it, 2 bread rolls, hard as rocks but still bread. She grabbed the bowl. It was cold. She didn't care. She was about to scoop the first bite into her mouth with her fingers when a shadow fell over her. The kitchen light clicked on. Maya froze. The bowl slipped from her numb fingers and clattered onto the floor. Yellow-orange pasta spilled across the white tile. A man stood in the doorway. He was tall, dressed not in a suit but in a dark blue bathrobe. His hair was thick and gray at the temples, and his eyes, even in the shadows, looked incredibly tired. It was Mr. Isaiah Kingston. The man who owned the house, the man who owned the company her mother worked for, the man who her mother always said must never, ever be disturbed. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. She couldn't breathe. She was caught. Isaiah Kingston stared, his mind struggling to catch up. He had lived in this house for 40 years. It was less a home and more a museum of his own life. A silent, grand place that had once been filled with the laughter of his wife, Eliza, and their son Marcus. Now it was just him and the staff who moved like ghosts. He suffered from insomnia. Sleep was a battle he rarely won. Tonight, the silence of the house felt louder than any noise. He had been in his study, a room lined with dark wood and books he no longer read. On his desk sat a framed photo of Eliza. He missed her. He missed her with an ache that felt as hollow as the house itself. He had decided to do something he hadn't done in years. Go to the kitchen himself and make a cup of hot milk. He had walked down the curved staircase, his leather slippers silent on the plush carpet. He passed the grand ballroom, dark and empty. He passed the formal dining room where the table was set for 12 as it was every day, though no one ever ate there. He reached the kitchen wing. He disliked this part of the house. It was Ms. Geraldine's domain. She was a stern woman hired after Eliza passed. She ran the house with ironclad efficiency. Isaiah appreciated the efficiency. It meant he didn't have to think about it. He had pushed open the heavy kitchen door, expecting darkness. Instead he saw a small shape, A child hunched over the catering cart. A small girl in braids. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. Maybe it was a ghost. A memory of his granddaughter who lived in California and rarely visited. Then the child dropped the bowl. The sound of porcelain on stone was sharp. It was real. The girl, he realized, was terrified. She was pressed against the steel cart, her eyes wide, staring at the spilled food. She looked like a cornered animal. "You," Isaiah started. His voice was rough from disuse. "What are you doing?" Maya couldn't speak. Her mind was screaming. "Run. Hide. Say sorry. Don't cry. Mama will be fired. We'll lose the apartment. We'll have no money for the medicine." She did the only thing she could. She dropped to her knees and began frantically trying to scoop the spilled macaroni back into the broken bowl with her bare hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words tearing from her throat. I'll clean it right now. Please. Please don't tell Miss Geraldine." "Please, sir." Isaiah watched her. He wasn't disgusted. He was confused. The girl was shaking. Her small hands were red and smeared with cheese sauce. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the mess, her small back heaving with silent sobs. He noticed her clothes. They were clean but worn. Her pink sneakers had holes in the toes. She was not his granddaughter. His granddaughter had rooms full of toys and ponies. This child was thin. "Stop," he said. His voice was softer this time, but it still held the authority of a man used to being obeyed. Maya froze, her hands full of cold pasta. "Who are you?" Isaiah asked. She looked up, her face streaked with tears and a tiny bit of sauce. I'm Maya, sir. Maya Jackson." "Jackson." Isaiah searched his memory. Tiana Jackson's daughter. Tiana. The quiet maid, the one with the sad eyes who always polished the silver in the library. He had seen her, of course. He nodded to her. She was diligent. Miss Geraldine had praised her work, which was rare. But he had never known she had a child. "Yes, sir," Maya whispered. "Where is your mother?" "She's working," Maya said immediately. "Upstairs. She's working very hard. She told me to stay in the staff lounge. She said to be quiet and not touch anything." "The staff lounge is on the other side of the basement," Isaiah said. His mind was sharp. "You are not in the staff lounge." Maya flinched. I was hungry." The words hung in the air. Simple, awful. Hungry. Isaiah Kingston had negotiated billion-dollar mergers. He had faced down hostile boards. He had buried his wife. He had never, in his entire 68 years, had a child stand in his own kitchen and tell him she was hungry. "I see," he said slowly. He looked at the discarded bread rolls on the cart. He looked at the broken bowl. "This is what you were eating. The scraps." "It was going to be thrown away," Maya said, desperate for him to understand. "Miss Geraldine throws it all away at 9:15. I wasn't stealing. I was just waiting for the garbage. Please, Mr. Kingston. My mama, she needs this job. She's sick." Maya clamped her mouth shut. She had said too much. Her mother's first rule: never ever talk about our problems. "We are fine. We are grateful." "She's sick?" Isaiah pressed. His curiosity was now a sharp, painful thing. But Maya was silent. She had retreated back into herself. She was just a small, terrified statue, kneeling in a puddle of cold food. Before Isaiah could speak again, a new voice cut through the kitchen. "What is the meaning of this?" Miss Geraldine stood in the other doorway, the one leading from the main hall. She was a tall, severe woman in a crisp black uniform. Her gray hair was pulled into a bun so tight it seemed to pull her eyes wider. She was holding a large black trash bag. She had come to clear the cart. Her eyes took in the scene in an instant. Mr. Kingston in his robe, looking disturbed. The girl on her knees. The spilled food. Her face, normally pale, turned a dark, blotchy red. "You," she snapped, pointing a long finger at Maya. "I knew it." Maya scrambled to her feet and backed away, pressing herself against the refrigerator. "Mr. Kingston, I am so sorry you had to see this," the housekeeper said, her voice shaking with rage. "I have suspected for weeks that food was going missing. I thought it was one of the night porters, but it was her." She advanced on Maya. "You filthy little thief, stealing from the hand that feeds your mother. I will have you both out of here tonight. I will call the police." "Miss Geraldine, that is enough," Isaiah said. His voice was not loud, but it cut through the housekeeper's rage like a cold knife. Miss Geraldine stopped, her hand still pointing at Maya. "Sir?" she asked, confused. "I will handle this," Isaiah said. "But sir, she is a thief." Miss Geraldine insisted, her voice shaking. She has broken the rules. She is trespassing in the main kitchen. She is stealing your food. Her mother, Tiana, bringing her here, letting her run wild. It is a disgrace. I will fetch Tiana now. She can pack her things. You will do no such thing, Isaiah commanded. Ms. Geraldine froze. She had never heard Mr. Kingston use that tone. Not with her. She turned, her mouth open. Sir, I am speaking with the girl, Isaiah said, his eyes fixed on the terrified Maya. Go back to your office. But Mr. Kingston, the mess. The rules. The mess can be cleaned, Isaiah said, his gaze never leaving Maya's pale face. The rules can wait. Go. Now. Ms. Geraldine looked as if she had been slapped. Her face went pale again. She clutched the trash bag to her chest. She gave Maya one last look, a look of pure poison. Then, without another word, she turned and marched out of the kitchen. Her rigid back was an insult. The kitchen was silent again, save for the hum of the freezer and Maya's tiny, hitched breaths. Isaiah let out a long breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked at Maya, who was still trembling, pressed against the refrigerator. He looked at the mess on the floor. Well, he said, his voice sounding strange in the huge room. I suppose we should clean this up. He walked over to the industrial sink, pulled a clean cloth from a hook and wet it. He walked back and knelt, wincing as his old knees popped. He knelt right on the cold floor next to the spilled pasta. Maya stared. The richest man she had ever heard of was on his knees, about to clean up her mess. Sir, no, she gasped. I'll do it. It's my fault. We'll do it together, Isaiah said. He began wiping up the sticky sauce. He looked at her. Go on, get the pieces of the bowl. Hesitantly, Maya knelt beside him. Her hands were shaking so hard she could barely pick up the broken shards of porcelain. Together, the billionaire and the maid's daughter began cleaning the floor. As Maya reached for a large piece of the broken bowl, her sleeve pulled up. Isaiah saw it. Her wrist was tiny, fragile as a bird's. And clutched in her other hand was something dark and metallic. What is that? He asked, his voice gentle. Maya quickly pulled her sleeve down, hiding her hand. It's nothing, sir. Just something I found. May I see it? She hesitated. Her mother's voice was in her head. Don't bother Mr. Kingston. Don't speak unless spoken to. But he was asking. Slowly she opened her small, grimy hand. It wasn't a toy. It was a cufflink. It was old, heavy, and made of dark, tarnished silver. In the center was a deep blue stone. Even covered in dust, it looked expensive. It looked like something that belonged to him. Isaiah looked closer. He frowned. He did not recognize it. It was old-fashioned, but the craftsmanship was beautiful. Where did you get this? He asked, his voice suddenly sharp with a new kind of interest. It was my great-uncle's, Maya whispered. My mama's uncle. He was a soldier. A soldier, Isaiah repeated, looking at the fine old cufflink and then at the small, hungry girl. He stood up, his knees aching. He had come down for milk. He had found a thief, a child, and now a mystery. Come with me, he said. Maya's heart leaped into her throat. Where? Not to Miss Geraldine, he said quickly, seeing the terror in her eyes. He pointed to a small wooden table in the corner of the kitchen, where the staff sometimes ate their lunch. Sit down. Maya did as she was told, perching on the very edge of the wooden stool. Isaiah walked to the giant walk-in refrigerator. He opened the door. The light inside spilled out, showing shelves piled high with food, cheeses, fruits, meats, bowls covered in plastic wrap. He scanned the shelves, his eyes passing over complicated French dishes. He found what he was looking for. He pulled out a large ceramic dish. He took it to the microwave, a machine he was fairly certain he'd never used, and peered at the buttons. After a moment he figured it out. A minute later he placed a steaming bowl on the table in front of Maya. It was full of macaroni and cheese. It was from his own dinner, prepared by his private chef. It was made with 3 kinds of expensive cheese. Eat, he said. It was not a request. Maya stared at the bowl. It was hot. The cheese was bubbling. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. Sir, you're hungry. Eat, Isaiah repeated. He grabbed one of the hard bread rolls from the discard cart. And this. He took a small tub of butter from the fridge and a knife. Put some butter on it. Slowly, as if she were afraid it was a trap, Maya picked up the spoon. She took a small bite. It was hot. It was the best thing she had ever tasted. Her hunger, which had been a cold, sharp ache, suddenly roared to life. She took another bite, faster this time. Isaiah watched her eat. She ate quickly, desperately, but with a strange, ingrained politeness. She didn't make a sound. She didn't spill a drop. She finished the entire bowl in less than 3 minutes. Then she ate the bread roll, crumbs falling onto her lap. When she was done, she looked up at him, her face flushed. "Thank you," she whispered. "You're welcome," Isaiah said. He sat down in the chair opposite her. The small table felt like an island in the vast, silent kitchen. "Now," he said, leaning forward, "you're going to tell me everything. You're going to tell me why Tiana Jackson's daughter is hiding in my kitchen eating garbage. And you're going to tell me about your mother. The truth. All of it." Maya stared at the empty bowl. The food had warmed her from the inside out. The fear was still there, a cold knot in her stomach, but it wasn't as sharp. Mr. Kingston's eyes were not angry like Ms. Geraldine's. They were heavy like the big, important books in his study. "If I tell you," she whispered, "will you still fire my mama?" Isaiah considered this. He was a businessman. He did not make promises he couldn't keep. "I cannot decide that until I know what is happening," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "But I do not like firing good employees. Your mother is a good employee." Maya took a shaky breath. It was the most hope she'd felt in months. "Mama is sick, sir," she began, her voice barely audible. She tries to hide it. But she coughs all the time. At night in our apartment it's bad. She gets so tired she falls asleep on the bus. Sometimes she falls asleep making dinner." "What is wrong with her?" Isaiah asked. "It's her lungs," Maya said. "From the smoke. Our old apartment building, it had a fire. A long time ago before we came here. She got everyone out on our floor. She ran back in for Mrs. Gable's cat." Maya twisted her hands in her lap. "She breathed in a lot of smoke. The doctor said her lungs are scarred. They don't work right. And now there's something else. A new sickness. They call it fibrosis." Isaiah nodded slowly. He knew the term. It was serious. It was expensive. "She has medicine," Maya continued, her voice gaining a little speed. "Pink pills and a blue puffer. But the doctor said she needs a special treatment. He said it costs more than a car. More than our whole apartment." She looked up, her blue-black eyes desperate. "We don't have that money, sir. We have no money. Mama gives all her paycheck to the hospital, but they keep sending letters. Red letters. They say they will stop the medicine if she doesn't pay. So the food," Isaiah said, gesturing to the cart. We eat a lot of oatmeal," Maya said, dropping her gaze. "And bread. Mama, she skips dinner. She says she ate at work, but I know she didn't. I hear her stomach growling at night when she thinks I'm asleep." Her shame returned, hot and sharp. "I just wanted her to have my dinner. We had one hot dog left. I told her I wasn't hungry. But then I came here and I could smell the kitchen. I just wanted one bite. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for," Isaiah said. His voice was gravel. He felt an old, unfamiliar anger rising in him. It was not directed at the child. It was directed at the red letters. At the world. He looked at the small, clenched fist in her lap. "Your great-uncle," he said, changing the subject. "The cufflink." Maya's face changed. The fear and shame receded, replaced by a tiny spark of pride. She opened her hand and looked at the tarnished silver. "This was Great-Uncle Michael," she said. "Mama's Uncle Mike. He was a hero." "Tell me." "He was in the big war. The one in the black and white pictures. Mama said he was very brave. He was a Tuskegee airman. He flew the airplanes with the red tails." Isaiah's breath caught. A Tuskegee airman. He had read about them. He had funded memorials for them. "He saved his whole team," Maya said, reciting the story she knew by heart. "They were trapped. The enemy was shooting at them. And my great-uncle, he did something. He flew his plane right at them. A distraction. He made them all look at him so his friends could get away. He was hit," Isaiah finished for her. Maya nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Yes, he was hurt bad, but he kept flying. They saved everyone. But his plane, it didn't come home." She touched the cufflink. "They sent this to my great-grandma. She gave it to Mama. And Mama gave it to me. She said, 'This is who we are, Maya. We are not people who run. We are people who help.' She said to hold it when I was scared. To remember Uncle Mike." Isaiah stared at the cufflink. He stared at the girl. An airman, a hero who gave his life to save his team. And this was his legacy. A 10-year-old girl hiding in a pantry, starving, so her mother, a woman who ran into a burning building for a cat, could pay for medicine. The silence in the kitchen stretched. It was no longer an empty silence. It was full of the girl's story. Mr. Kingston. A sharp voice broke the quiet. Tiana Jackson stood in the doorway. She was pale, her dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her maid's uniform was rumpled, and her eyes were wide with a terror that went beyond losing a job. Mr. Kingston. Sir. Ms. Geraldine, she just told me? Tiana's eyes darted from the billionaire to her daughter. She saw the empty, expensive-looking bowl on the table. She saw the breadcrumbs. She saw Maya, who looked both terrified and strangely not hungry. Her face crumpled. "Oh, Maya, what did you do?" "Tiana," Isaiah said, standing up. He was a tall man, and in the small staff area, he seemed to fill the room. "Sir, I am so sorry," Tiana rushed, her words tumbling over each other. Her eyes were fixed on the expensive, empty bowl. She knows the rules. She knows she is to stay in the lounge. I had to wax the floors in the East Wing and I was so tired. I told her to read her book. Sir, please don't fire me. Please. I will pay for whatever she ate. Oh, I'll work for free. Oh, Tiana." Isaiah's voice was a command, not a shout. She stopped. Tears were streaming down her face. She was visibly trembling, not just with fear but with the exhaustion of her illness. "Maya has been explaining the situation to me," Isaiah said. Tiana's face went white. "What situation? The money? The sickness?" "Sir, I don't know what she told you. She's just a child. She makes up stories." "She told me about your apartment fire," Isaiah said. Tiana's mouth clicked shut. "She told me about your lungs. And the red letters from the hospital." Tiana Jackson looked as if she were about to faint. She grabbed the door frame to steady herself. "Sir," she whispered, her voice hoarse. That is my business. It is not. I would never. It is not your concern." Her voice was a mixture of desperation and a fierce, wounded pride. "You work for me," Isaiah said, his voice flat. "You work in my home. Your daughter is hiding in my pantry because she is hungry. I believe that makes it my concern." Tiana didn't know what to say. She was trapped. Exposed. "Mama," Maya said, sliding off the high stool. She ran to her mother and buried her face in her apron. "I'm sorry, Mama. I was so hungry. And I told him about Uncle Mike." "Oh, Maya," Tiana whispered, her hand stroking her daughter's braids. She looked at Isaiah, her eyes pleading. "Please, sir. She's a good girl. I'm a good worker. Oh, I'll do anything." Isaiah looked at the two of them. The mother, sick and proud, trying to hold her small family together. The daughter, brave and hungry, clutching a hero's cufflink. He had built an empire on calculated decisions, on numbers and projections, on profit and loss. This was not a business decision. "Tiana," he said. "First, you are not fired." Tiana sagged against the door, a sob of pure relief escaping her. "Thank you, sir. Thank you." "Second," Isaiah continued, "Maya will not be eating leftovers again." He walked to the main kitchen phone, the one mounted on the wall. It was an internal line. He picked it up and dialed a 4-digit number. Tiana and Maya watched, confused. It rang once. "Hello," a sleepy male voice answered. "Jamal," Isaiah said. "It's Isaiah. Wake up. I'm sending a car for you." Jamal was Isaiah's personal lawyer and his fix-it man. "Sir, it's almost 10 o'clock, the voice grumbled. "I am aware," Isaiah said. "I am in my kitchen with an employee and her daughter. Her daughter, by the way, is the grandniece of a Tuskegee airman, and her mother is being harassed by a hospital." There was a pause on the other end. "Harassed, sir?" "Red letters. Denying treatment. The usual. I want you to find out which hospital. I want you to call them. I don't care what time it is. I want you to handle it." "Handle it, sir?" "Pay the bill," Isaiah said, his voice flat. "All of it. And find out who her doctor is. I want her to see Dr. Evans at the Mason Clinic tomorrow. The best lung specialist. I will call him myself. Bill everything to my personal account." In the doorway, Tiana was shaking her head, her face pale. "Sir, no. I cannot. I cannot accept that. It's charity." Isaiah put his hand over the receiver. He looked at her. "Ma'am," he said, and his voice was cold. "Your great-uncle flew into enemy fire to save his men. You ran into a burning building to save a cat. It seems to me your family has a habit of helping people. Now, please be quiet and let someone help you." He turned back to the phone. "Jamal, are you writing this down?" "Yes, sir," the voice said, suddenly very awake. "Consider it handled." Isaiah hung up. He turned back to Tiana and Maya. Tiana was crying silently, her hand over her mouth. Maya was just staring, her eyes wide. Now, Isaiah said, feeling a strange energy he hadn't felt in years. The sleeping arrangements. Sir? Tiana said, confused. You can't go back to your apartment tonight. Not when you have a top-floor appointment with Dr. Evans in the morning. And Maya is exhausted. He looked at the girl who was swaying on her feet. Miss Geraldine, Isaiah said, keeps 20 guest rooms on the 3rd floor in a state of constant readiness. He looked at Tiana. Tonight, you and Maya will be my guests. Sir, we can't, Tiana protested, her voice rising in panic. The staff. Miss Geraldine, she will have a fit. Miss Geraldine, Isaiah said, a very thin, very cold smile touching his lips, works for me. I believe I am allowed to have guests in my own home. Especially, he added, his eyes landing on the silver cufflink still clutched in Maya's hand, the family of a hero. He walked toward the door, not the service entrance but the main door leading to the grand hallway. He gestured for them to follow. Come. I will show you to your rooms. We will use the main staircase. Tiana Miller felt like she was floating. Her body was light, but her head was heavy with a dizzying, cold terror. She clutched Maya's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. Mr. Kingston was leading them out of the kitchen, not through the swinging service door they always used, but through the main door into the grand hallway. This was forbidden. The house was different at night, silent and overwhelmingly large. It felt less like a home and more like a sleeping museum. Dark, heavy-framed paintings stared down at them. The eyes of Isaiah Kingston's ancestors, men with the same strong jaw and serious eyes, followed the small, strange procession. The billionaire in his expensive robe, the maid in her rumpled uniform and the child in her worn-out sneakers. Maya's bare feet sank into the plush, dark blue carpet. It was softer than any bed she'd ever slept on. She wanted to take off her shoes, feeling it was rude to walk on it, even though she wasn't wearing any. Tiana, however, felt only ice-cold fear. This was not her place. She was staff. She was kitchen staff, the lowest rung on the ladder. She was not allowed in the main halls unless she was actively cleaning them, and even then she was meant to be invisible, to fade into the wallpaper if a member of the family appeared. She was certainly not allowed on the main staircase. Mr. Kingston headed straight for it. The staircase was a massive, curving sculpture of dark cherry wood. It swept upward into the shadows of the 2nd floor, wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. Sir, Tiana whispered, her voice cracking. She tugged lightly on the sleeve of his robe, a shockingly bold move. We can use the back stairs. The staff stairs. It is better. Isaiah stopped. He looked back at her. His face was unreadable in the dim light of the hall, which was lit only by a few small, glowing lamps. The staff stairs are for staff, Tiana, he said simply. Tonight you are guests. He turned and continued climbing. Yes. The word felt like a lie in her mouth. A trick. Tiana's heart hammered against her ribs. Each step on the soft, carpeted stair was a betrayal of the rules. Miss Geraldine's rules. The rules that kept her employed, that kept a roof, any roof, over their heads. She could hear the housekeeper's voice in her head, sharp and cold. You are not family. You are help. Remember your place. She pulled Maya closer. Maya, however, was just looking up, her mouth open in a small, staring at the giant crystal chandelier that hung dark and heavy 2 stories above them. It looked like a frozen explosion of stars. They reached the 2nd floor landing. The hallway stretched before them, a long, wide river of the same blue carpet, lined with closed white doors. Mr. Kingston's private rooms were in the west wing. The guest rooms, the 20 empty, silent rooms, were in the east wing. As they turned toward the east wing, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Miss Geraldine. She stood like a statue, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She was no longer red-faced and angry as she had been in the kitchen. She was pale, cold, and perfectly controlled. Her eyes were not on Mr. Kingston. They were on Tiana. It was a look of such pure, icy contempt that Tiana flinched, physically pulling back as if she'd been struck. Mr. Kingston, Miss Geraldine said, her voice quiet but as sharp as a needle. It is very late. I was just doing my final rounds. As was I, Miss Geraldine, Isaiah said. His voice was casual, almost light. Thank you. You may go to bed. The housekeeper did not move. Her eyes slid from Tiana to Maya, who was now hiding behind Tiana's legs. What are you doing, sir? She asked. With them. The word them hung in the air, filled with a disgust so thick it was suffocating. I am showing my guests to their room, Isaiah said. He gestured down the hall. The blue room, I think. It has a good view of the gardens in the morning. Miss Geraldine's mask of perfect, cold control finally cracked. A small, disbelieving hiss of air escaped her. Guests? Sir, she is a maid. And the child? The child is a thief. Tiana's knees buckled. The accusation hit her harder than any physical blow. Miss Geraldine, please, she begged, her voice a desperate whisper. It was a mistake. She was hungry. She was stealing food, Tiana, Miss Geraldine snapped, her voice finally rising. Do not deny it. I caught her. And you knew. You brought her here, you let this happen in this house. You have no control over your own child. That is enough, Isaiah said. His voice was low, but it cut through the housekeeper's anger like a razor. Miss Geraldine turned to him, her hands now clenched at her sides. Sir, I must protest. It is my job to protect this house. To maintain standards. If you allow this, she gestured to Tiana and Maya as if they were garbage, it sets a terrible example for the other staff. It breaks every rule. She must be dismissed. For theft. For trespassing. For... Isaiah took one slow step toward her. He was taller than her by a good 6 inches. He had been quiet for many years, a ghost in his own home, letting her run his life. But he was not a weak man. He had built an empire from nothing. Miss Geraldine, he realized, had forgotten who she worked for. I am aware of the rules, Miss Geraldine, he said, his voice dangerously soft. But perhaps you are not aware of the full situation. Sir, the situation is a simple matter of theft. This, Isaiah said, cutting her off, is Tiana Jackson. And this is her daughter, Maya. I know who she is, sir. But you do not know who her family is, Isaiah continued. This is the grandniece of Michael Jackson. Miss Geraldine frowned. The name meant nothing to her. So, Michael Redtail Jackson, Isaiah said, his voice ringing with a new hard authority that silenced the entire hallway. He was a pilot with the 101st Airborne. A Tuskegee Airman. Tiana looked up, her tear-filled eyes wide with shock. He had remembered. He jumped into Normandy, Isaiah said, his words painting a picture. He was killed in action near Corentin, flying his plane directly into enemy fire to save his entire squad from an ambush. He was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Posthumously. Miss Geraldine's mouth opened slightly. She looked confused. This had nothing to do with her rules. His cufflink, Isaiah said, his voice dropping, nodding toward Maya, who was clutching it in her pocket, is in this house. The family of a genuine American hero is in this house. And you call them thieves. You want to throw them out in the middle of the night? Because the child was hungry. He let the words sink in. The silence in the hallway was heavy, suffocating. Tiana was openly crying, her hand over her mouth. Isaiah finished, his voice like cold steel, find that unacceptable. Do you? Miss Geraldine's pale face had gone chalk white. She was a woman who valued rules and appearances above all else. She had just been put on the wrong side of patriotism, heroism, and the owner of the house all at once. She was beaten. She knew it. No, sir, she whispered. Good, Isaiah said. He turned away from her, his dismissal absolute. Now Tiana and Maya are my personal guests. They are to be treated as such. They will be staying in the blue room. I trust you will ensure they have everything they need. Toiletries, fresh clothes, breakfast in the morning. Whatever they ask for. Yes, sir, Miss Geraldine said. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. Excellent. Good night, Miss Geraldine. Isaiah turned his back on her completely. He did not wait for her to leave. He walked to the third door on the right and pushed it open. Tiana, Maya. In here. Tiana, shaking, pulled Maya past the frozen, humiliated housekeeper. They slipped into the room and Isaiah followed, closing the door firmly behind them, shutting out the poisonous hate in the hallway. The room was enormous. It was painted a soft, pale blue, with accents of cream and gold. A massive bed, piled high with white pillows and a thick comforter, sat in the middle. It was bigger than Tiana's whole living room. A crystal lamp glowed on a bedside table. On the other side of the room, there was a small white sofa, a fireplace with a marble mantel and a dark wood desk. Maya let go of her mother's hand. She walked as if in a dream to the bed. She reached out one small finger and touched the comforter. It was, she thought, like touching a cloud. Mama, she whispered. Look. Tiana stood just inside the door, wringing her hands. Sir, Mr. Kingston, this is too much. This is a room for kings. This is a room for guests, Isaiah said. He walked over to a closet and opened it. My granddaughter leaves clothes here. They may be too large for Maya, but they will be warm. Pajamas are in the dresser. The bathroom is through there. He pointed to another door. He then walked to the small desk by the window. He picked up the telephone. This phone will ring at 8 o'clock in the morning, he said, looking at Tiana. It will be my lawyer, Jamal Thorne. He will confirm the time of your appointment with Dr. Evans. My personal driver, Ben, will take you there and bring you back. Tiana was trying to process the words. Dr. Evans. My lawyer. My personal driver. It was a different language from a different world. She stammered. Sir, how can I ever pay you for this? Isaiah looked at her. Her face was thin and exhausted. Her eyes were red from crying, but she was proud. He saw the same pride he'd heard in Maya's story. The pride of people who run toward trouble, not away from it. You will not pay me, Tiana, he said. This is not a transaction. This is correcting an error. A Tuskegee Airman's grandniece should not be in medical debt. Not in my country. And certainly not in my house. He turned to Maya, who was now sitting on the edge of the bed, bouncing slightly on the soft mattress. You, he said, and his voice was almost gruff. Get some sleep. You look tired. He walked to the door. Mr. Kingston? Maya called out. He stopped, his hand on the brass knob. Thank you for the macaroni, she said. A small, strange feeling moved in Isaiah's chest. It felt like a rusty gate creaking open. It might have been a smile. You are welcome, Maya, he said. Good night. He closed the door, leaving them alone. For a full minute, Tiana and Maya just stood in the silent, beautiful room. The only sound was the muffled rattle of Tiana's breathing as she tried to catch her breath. Then Maya slid off the bed and ran to the bathroom. Mama, come see. The tub is big enough for a boat. Tiana walked slowly, cautiously into the room. She sat on the edge of the giant, soft bed. She looked at her hands, red and raw from cleaning chemicals. She looked at the fine silk wallpaper. She had been so afraid of being fired, so afraid of losing the little they had. Now, in one night, everything had changed. She felt like she was in a fairy tale. But she also knew that Miss Geraldine was still out there. He said to the housekeeper was not a kind woman. Spirit. She had been humiliated. This house has been missing for a very long time. This was not over. Of the small, brave down girl. The hall, he thought of the Kingston was not in his bed. He thought of the mother study, sitting in his leather chair. Then he thought of Miss Geraldine in his hand. Her cold, he looked at the framed photo of his wife, rigid obsession with rules that applied to everyone but, perhaps, herself. He had allowed that. He had allowed his home to become a place where a child would rather starve than ask for help. He had been asleep for 10 years, he realized, ever since Eliza died. He had been a ghost in his own life. He picked up his phone. He did not call his lawyer. He called the head of his corporate security. George, he said, his voice awake and sharp. I have a situation at my home. I need you to look into one of my staff. A Miss Geraldine. Yes, the head housekeeper. I want a full report. Finances, background, everything. I suspect irregularities. He hung up the phone. He looked out the window at the dark, sprawling gardens. No more, he said to the darkness. No more. The first light of morning was gray and uncertain, pressing weakly against the heavy, expensive curtains. Tiana Jackson woke with a jolt, her entire body stiff. For a moment she was completely lost. Her neck was cramped at a painful angle. She was in her uniform. She was sitting in a plush, velvet armchair, but her feet were propped up on the softest, thickest mattress she had ever felt. Then it all came rushing back, a flood of impossible memories. Mr. Kingston. The kitchen. The spilled pasta. The cold, furious eyes of Miss Geraldine. The grand staircase. This room. This room. She looked at the bed. Maya was buried in the exact center of the mountain of white pillows and comforters. Only a small patch of her braided hair was visible. She was breathing deeply, her small face peaceful and unworried. She was warm. She was safe. Tiana felt a sharp pang of guilt. She had been so exhausted, so terrified. She had sat in the chair by the bed just to watch Maya sleep for a minute, to soak in the impossible reality of it. She must have fallen asleep herself, still too afraid to lie in the bed, still feeling like an imposter. She stood up, her joints aching and popping. The room was silent, insulated from the rest of the house. She looked around. It was real. The silk wallpaper, the heavy blue curtains, the crystal lamp, the faint, expensive smell of lemons and lavender. It was all real. A new kind of fear settled in, cold and sharp. What happened now? What did the morning bring? Had Mr. Kingston changed his mind? Was this all a strange, cruel dream? Or worse, was Miss Geraldine downstairs, sharpening her knives, waiting for them? waiting to have them thrown out not just from the house but from their jobs, their apartment, their entire lives? The humiliation of last night would have made her rage solidify into something hard and dangerous. Just as the thought crossed her mind, a soft electronic beep came from the desk by the window. It made Tiana jump, her heart leaping into her throat. It beeped again. The telephone. She tiptoed over to it, her hand trembling. She picked it up. "Hello," she whispered. "Mrs. Jackson? Tiana Jackson?" The voice was male, professional, and wide awake. It was a voice that sounded like it billed by the hour. "Yes, this is she. Good morning. My name is Jamal Thorne. I am Mr. Isaiah Kingston's personal counsel." Tiana's blood ran cold. Counsel. Lawyer. It sounded serious, like she was in trouble. Is something wrong?" "Not at all, Mrs. Jackson," the voice said, and it was surprisingly kind. "I'm just calling to confirm your schedule for this morning. Mr. Kingston has arranged an appointment for you with Dr. Robert Evans at the Mason Clinic. The appointment is at 9:30 a.m. A car will be waiting for you and your daughter at the front entrance at 9 a.m. Tiana tried to write this down in her head, her mind spinning. The Mason Clinic? But I can't. "Mrs. Jackson," Jamal said, his voice gentle but firm. "Please do not worry about a single thing. All costs for the consultation and any subsequent treatments are being handled by Mr. Kingston's family office. Your only concern is to be at the front door at 9 o'clock. Do you have any questions?" No. "Thank you," Tiana whispered. "Thank you, sir." "You are very welcome. Have a good day, Mrs. Jackson." The line clicked. Tiana hung up the phone. She stared at it. A car. At the front entrance. There was a soft knock at the door. Tiana froze. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it would break through her ribs. It was Ms. Geraldine. It had to be. She had come to throw them out. The phone call was a trick. Who is it?" Tiana called, her voice shaking so badly she barely recognized it. It's just Maria, ma'am." A young, nervous voice replied. Tiana frowned. Maria. The kind cook who left the food out. But this voice was different. Tiana opened the door a tiny crack. A young woman in a crisp black and white housemaid's uniform stood there, pushing a silver cart. It was not Maria the cook. It was a different Maria, one of the daytime housemaids. She looked about 19 and her eyes were wide and nervous. "Good morning, ma'am," the girl whispered as if she too was afraid of being overheard. "Mr. Kingston, he sent this up for you. And the young lady." She pushed the cart into the room. It was covered in silver domes. I don't understand," Tiana said. The girl lifted one of the domes. Underneath was a plate of fluffy scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast. Another held a bowl of bright red strawberries. There was a pot of coffee, a small pitcher of orange juice, and, for Maya, a tall cup of hot chocolate with whipped cream. "Mr. Kingston," the maid said, her eyes darting around the hallway before she fully entered the room. He called the kitchen himself. At 7 a.m. Ms. Geraldine. She was not happy. The girl gave Tiana a very small, very fast smile. "He said you were to have whatever you wanted." "Oh," Tiana said. It was all she could manage. "Mama?" Tiana turned. Maya was sitting up in the giant bed, her hair a tangled mess. She rubbed her eyes. She looked at Tiana, then at the maid, then at the cart. Her eyes went wide. "Mama," she whispered, her voice full of awe. "Are we in heaven?" "Close," Tiana said, a shaky, tearful laugh escaping her. "It's breakfast." The young maid smiled, placed the cart by the small sofa, and scurried out of the room, closing the door softly behind her. "Eat, sweetie," Tiana said, her throat tight. "Eat fast. We have to be ready. A car is coming." At 9 a.m. on the dot, Tiana walked out of the elevator into the main foyer. She had washed her face and pulled her hair back. She was still wearing her uniform from yesterday, but she had brushed it off and stood as straight as she could. Maya, clutching her great uncle's cufflink, held her hand. The foyer was a vast expanse of black and white marble. Ms. Geraldine was there. She was standing by a large, ornate desk, sorting mail. She did not look up as they approached. She did not acknowledge their presence. Her entire body was rigid, a wall of pure, vibrating hate. She simply, pointedly ignored them. Tiana's small, borrowed courage faltered. She felt small again. She felt like a fraud, like a thief, just as Ms. Geraldine had called her. But then the massive oak front doors opened. A man in a black suit and driver's cap stood there. He was tall, and he smiled kindly at them, his eyes ignoring Ms. Geraldine completely. "Mrs. Jackson?" he said, his voice respectful. The car is ready for you. Tiana took a deep breath. She looked at Ms. Geraldine's hateful, rigid back. She squeezed Maya's hand. We are not people who run. Thank you, she said, her voice clear and strong. She walked past the housekeeper, past the grand portraits of the Kingston family, and out into the bright, cold morning. The Mason Clinic was not a clinic. It was a glass and steel building that looked more like a modern art museum. They were not asked to wait. They were not given clipboards or asked for insurance cards. They were greeted by a woman at the front desk with a warm smile. Mrs. Jackson, we've been expecting you. Dr. Evans is ready. They were taken to a large, quiet office with a beautiful view of a garden. A kind-faced man with silver hair and warm eyes stood to greet them. Tiana, I'm Robert Evans. It's a pleasure to meet you. He shook her hand. And then Tiana's breath caught. Mr. Kingston was there. He was sitting in a leather chair in the corner, dressed not in a robe but in a sharp, dark gray suit. He looked powerful and serious. He had not just sent them. He had come. Sir, Tiana stammered. You are here. Of course, Isaiah said as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I wanted to hear what Robert had to say. He gestured to Maya. And this must be the guest of honor, Maya? Maya, who had been hiding behind Tiana, gave a small, shy wave. For the next hour, Tiana was examined. Dr. Evans was kind, patient, and incredibly thorough. He took new X-rays in a machine that looked like something from a science fiction movie. He ran breathing tests. He looked at the charts from Tiana's old hospital, which were already sitting on his desk. Finally, he sat them all down. Well, Tiana, he said, his kind eyes looking directly into hers. The good news is you are a very strong woman. The bad news is your lungs have taken a serious beating. The smoke inhalation from that fire, it caused significant scarring. And this new infection, you have pulmonary fibrosis. It's advanced. Tiana's hand flew to her mouth. She had known, but hearing it in this clean, expensive room made it final. But, Dr. Evans said, holding up a hand, it is not a hopeless situation. The clinic you were at, they were not wrong about the new treatment. It's a specialized drug combined with intensive respiratory therapy. It is very, very effective at stopping the scarring. In some cases, even reversing it. The cost, Tiana whispered, her eyes filling with tears. The letter said. The cost, Mr. Kingston said, speaking for the first time, his voice cutting through her fear, is not a factor. It is not to be discussed. It is not your concern. He turned to the doctor. Robert, what does she need? She needs to start the therapy immediately, Dr. Evans said. Today. And she needs to rest. Her body is exhausted. She cannot be working. She cannot be under this kind of stress. She will not be, Isaiah said. He stood up, his presence filling the room. Tiana, your employment at my home is changing. As of this moment, you are on indefinite, fully paid medical leave. Your only job is to get well. This man, he said, clapping Dr. Evans on the shoulder, is the best. You will listen to everything he says. Is that understood? Tiana looked from the kind doctor to the serious billionaire. She was overwhelmed. A year of terror, of red letters, of skipping meals, of hearing her own lungs fail her. It was all collapsing. She couldn't speak. She just nodded, silent tears streaming down her face. Good, Isaiah said. Now Maya and I will go get. What do children eat? A muffin. We will go get a muffin in the cafeteria. The nurse will be in to get you started, Tiana. He put a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. Come, Maya. Let's let your mother get to work. As a kind nurse in blue scrubs came in and gently took Tiana's arm, Isaiah's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, frowning at the name. He stepped into the hallway, leaving Maya in the care of the nurse for a second. Yes, George, he said, his voice low. It was his head of security. Sir, George's voice was grim. You were right to ask. I've only been digging for a few hours. This is just the start, but it's not just irregularities. It's bad. It's very bad. Isaiah stood in the sterile, quiet hallway of the Mason Clinic, his knuckles white as he gripped his phone. The warm, kind world of the doctor's office evaporated, replaced by the cold, hard reality of his security chief's report. Sir, are you there? George's voice was grim. Tell me, Isaiah commanded, his voice a low growl. It's not just irregularities, Mr. Kingston. It's a full-blown operation. Ms. Geraldine is not just a tyrant. She's a thief. What did she take? Isaiah asked, his mind already racing, connecting the dots between her cruelty and her greed. What didn't she take? George said. I started with the household accounts like you asked. The vendors. Systemic. She has been systematically overordering for years. Food, linens, cleaning supplies, wine. Tens of thousands of dollars a month. Where does it go? Isaiah asked, though he already suspected the answer. It doesn't, George said flatly. The orders are faked. She approves the invoices, the house pays them, and the money gets funneled into an account for a shell company. Prestige Home Solutions. I traced the account. It's registered to her. Isaiah's jaw tightened. All these years. All these years, while he grieved for his wife, while he sat in his study like a ghost, she had been robbing him blind. The anger that filled him was cold and pure. It wasn't about the money. He had more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. It was the betrayal. The profound, staggering insult. There's more, George said, his voice heavy. The staff overtime. She's been padding it. Adding hours for part-time staff who don't know any better, then skimming the difference. She bullies them, threatens to fire them if they question her. Tiana Jackson. She was a prime target. No husband, a sick child. Ms. Geraldine knew Tiana would never, ever complain. That was the final piece. The connection. The cruelty wasn't a byproduct of her power, it was a tool. She kept the staff terrified so they would never look too closely. She let a child starve to protect her own tiny, sordid empire. She had turned his home into a place of fear so she could steal from him. George, Isaiah said, his voice flat and devoid of all emotion. Get everything. Every invoice, every bank transfer. I want a full confession and a repayment agreement drafted and on my desk in 1 hour. A confession, sir? Are we not calling the police? No, Isaiah said. The press would be a circus, and it would drag Tiana and Maya into a story they didn't deserve. This will be handled internally. But it will be handled. Now. Yes, sir. It'll be on your desk. One more thing, George. I want her gone. Today. Escort her off the property yourself. I don't want her to touch a single thing. Understood, sir. The line clicked. Isaiah stood in the hallway for a long moment, the silence of the clinic pressing in on him. He felt a white-hot, clarifying rage he hadn't felt since his wife's death. He had been asleep. Now he was awake. He put his phone away and smoothed his suit. He walked back into the exam room, his face a mask of calm. Tiana was sitting as the nurse took a blood sample, looking pale but resolute. Maya was in the corner, deep in conversation with the other nurse about a poster of the human body on the wall. Everything all right, sir? Tiana asked, noticing his grim expression. Everything is fine, Tiana, Isaiah said, his voice softening as he looked at her. I just handled a business matter. Now I have to return to the house. Ben will stay with you. He will take you and Maya wherever you need to go after Dr. Evans is finished, and then back to the house. Sir, you've done too much. Tiana, he said, my only concern is that you get well. Your job is to listen to these doctors. My job is to take care of the rest. He turned to Maya. Maya, I need to ask you a big favor. Maya's eyes went wide. A favor? That cufflink. Your great uncle's. May I borrow it? Just for today? I have to face down a dragon. And I could use a little extra courage. Maya's face lit up. She dug into her pocket and pulled out the tarnished silver piece. It's very lucky, Mr. Kingston. He took it from her small hand. It felt heavy, weighted with history and sacrifice. I know, he said. He slipped it into his suit pocket. I will see you both this evening. The ride back to the mansion was silent. Isaiah stared out the window, the silver cufflink a comforting weight in his pocket. When he arrived, George was waiting in the foyer, holding a thin blue folder. It's all in there, sir, George said. The confession is on your desk. Where is she? Isaiah asked. In her office. Unaware. As requested. Good. Isaiah walked past him, up the grand staircase and to his study. He sat behind his desk. The folder was there. He opened it. The numbers were staggering. She had stolen, over 10 years, nearly $2 million. He buzzed the internal line to the housekeeper's office. Yes, sir? Ms. Geraldine's voice was crisp and professional, as if nothing had happened. Ms. Geraldine, please come to my study. We have a financial matter to discuss. Of course, sir. Right away. 5 minutes later, she entered the study. She looked as she always did, perfectly composed, her gray hair in a tight bun, her back rigid. She was holding a notepad. Sir, you wanted to see me? I must tell you the staff is in an uproar. Your decision to house the Jacksons, it is causing chaos. Maria, the new maid, is talking about breakfast trays. It is a complete breakdown of protocol. Please sit down, Ms. Geraldine, Isaiah said, his voice quiet. She sat, her back not even touching the chair. She was ready for a fight, ready to defend her rules. The account for Prestige Home Solutions, Isaiah said, his eyes never leaving hers. Ms. Geraldine's words stopped. Her mouth, which had been forming another complaint, hung open. All the blood drained from her face, leaving it a sickly, mottled white. I don't know what you mean, sir. Isaiah slid the blue folder across the massive desk. It stopped directly in front of her. It's all in there, Ms. Geraldine, he said, his voice a low, cold whisper. The fake invoices. The shell company. The padded overtime. The theft. The housekeeper looked at the folder as if it were a snake. She began to tremble, her carefully constructed composure shattering like glass. Sir, it's a misunderstanding, she stammered, her voice high and thin, unrecognizable. The cost of living, you have so much. I have given you 10 years of my life. I ran this house. You ran it into the ground, Isaiah said, his voice a low growl. He stood up, towering over her. You built a tiny, pathetic kingdom on theft and you ruled it with fear. You bullied a sick woman. You allowed a 10-year-old child to eat from a garbage cart in my house. Please. She begged, tears of panic and humiliation now streaming down her face. Sir, please don't call the police. I'll pay it back. Oh, you will pay it back, Isaiah said. He pointed to the single sheet of paper on his desk. This is a confession and a repayment agreement. You will sign it. Every penny you stole will be paid back from your bank accounts and your pension, which are already frozen. George, he called out. His security chief stepped into the room from the adjoining library. Sir, please, Ms. Geraldine sobbed, a broken, wretched sound. My reputation. Where will I go? What will I do? You should have thought of that, Isaiah said, his voice like ice, when you were stealing from me. You should have thought of that when you were threatening a sick mother. And you certainly should have thought of that when you raised your voice to a hero's family. He pushed the pen toward her. Sign it. She snatched the pen, her hand shaking so violently she could barely write her name. George stepped forward, took the paper and then took her arm. Wait, Isaiah said. They stopped. Ms. Geraldine looked at him, a tiny, desperate flicker of hope in her eyes. You will give Tiana Jackson, Isaiah said, a full written apology. And you will apologize to the rest of the staff for your behavior and your theft. George will watch you write it. And then he will escort you to your car. You will take your purse. Nothing else. The rest of your things will be burned. The hope died. Yes, sir, she whimpered. He watched George drag her out of the room, a shell of the tyrant she had been. He sat down, the silence of the study profound. He reached into his pocket and placed the small silver cufflink on his desk. The house was finally truly silent. The cancer was gone. Isaiah Kingston sat in the profound silence of his study for a long time. The only sound was the faint tick of the grandfather clock in the hall. The house, which for 10 years had felt empty, now felt cleansed. The oppressive, fearful energy that had clung to the air like dust was gone, vacuumed out with the departure of its creator. He looked at the small silver cufflink on his desk. It was a simple old-fashioned thing, but it felt like the heaviest object in the room. A symbol of a man who ran toward the fire. A symbol of a family that didn't run. He had been running. Hiding in his grief, hiding in his wealth, hiding from a life that had hurt him. He let a petty, cruel woman rule his home, and in doing so, he had almost allowed a terrible injustice to happen. No more. He picked up the phone and dialed the kitchen. Maria, the kind cook, answered, her voice nervous. Kitchen, this is Maria. Maria, this is Mr. Kingston. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. Yes, sir, Mr. Kingston. Right away, sir. Maria, calm down, he said, his voice softer than he intended. I'm calling to ask you a question. What is your favorite thing to cook? Sir? You heard me. You've been making staff meals and my bland dinners for years. What do you love to cook? There was a long pause. Then a shy voice. I make a very good gumbo, sir. My grandmother's recipe. Gumbo, Isaiah said, a small smile touching his lips. Excellent. I'd like you to make it for dinner tonight. For everyone. For me, for yourself, for the rest of the staff, and for Tiana and Maya. A family dinner. In the main dining room. Sir? The main dining room? It's been empty long enough, don't you think? Cook as much as you can. We're celebrating. Celebrating what, sir? We're celebrating a change in management, Isaiah said and hung up. He leaned back, the leather of his chair creaking. The silence was broken by the distant, joyful clatter of a pot hitting a stove. It was a start. An hour later, Ben, the driver, escorted Tiana and Maya back into the house. Tiana was pale and clearly exhausted from her first treatment, but her eyes were different. The desperate, hunted look was gone. In its place was a fragile, flickering ember of hope. The house felt weird. The other staff members, the ones Tiana usually avoided, didn't scurry away. They looked at her. A few of them, the younger maids, even smiled at her. The whispers she heard weren't angry. They sounded relieved. "What's going on?" she whispered to Ben, who was carrying a small bag from the hospital pharmacy. "Management's had a bit of a shake-up, Mrs. Jackson," Ben said, a wide smile on his face. "You just worry about yourself. You and the little lady are in the blue room, right? I'll have Maria send up some tea." Tiana and Maya returned to the vast, beautiful room. It felt more real this time, less like a dream. Tiana sat heavily on the small sofa, her body aching but her lungs feeling clearer. It was probably just her imagination, but she took a deep breath, and it didn't end in a painful, dry cough. Maya, meanwhile, explored. She opened the drawers in the desk, finding thick, creamy paper and a heavy pen. She ran her hands along the silk wallpaper. She was a child, and the fear of the night before was already fading, replaced by a simple, profound curiosity. There was a knock on the door. Tiana tensed, her old fear spiking. "Who is it?" "It's Isaiah, Tiana. May I come in?" Tiana's eyes went wide. She looked at her rumpled uniform. "Ah, yes, sir. Come in." Mr. Kingston entered. He wasn't in his suit anymore. He was wearing dark trousers and a simple black cashmere sweater. He looked less like a billionaire and more like just a man. A very tired, very rich man. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his eyes kind. "Tired," Tiana admitted. "But good." The doctor said. "He said the treatment will work. He said I just need time." "That's all," Isaiah said. "Time and rest. Both of which you have an unlimited supply." "Mr. Kingston." Maya ran up to him, her shyness gone. "Did you face the dragon?" Isaiah's smile was small, but it was real. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the cufflink. "I did, Maya. And we won." He knelt, wincing slightly so he was on her level. "And I believe this belongs to you." He placed the silver cufflink back in her small hand. Did you fire Ms. Geraldine?" Maya asked, her voice a small whisper. Tiana gasped. "Maya, you don't ask things like that." "It's all right, Tiana," Isaiah said, standing up. He looked at Tiana. "Yes, Maya. Ms. Geraldine is no longer employed here." Tiana sagged against the sofa, a wave of relief so powerful it made her dizzy. "Thank God," she whispered. "I was so afraid. I thought, when we came back." "You will never have to be afraid of her again," Isaiah said. "Her actions were not just cruel. They were illegal. She was stealing from the house. From all of us." "Stealing?" Tiana was shocked. "Yes, which is why Isaiah's phone, sitting on the desk where he'd left it, began to buzz. A sharp, angry, vibrating sound. He frowned. It wasn't his personal phone. It was the house line. He picked it up. "Hello?" He listened, his face growing darker with every passing second. The kindness vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. "When?" he snapped. He listened again. "No, she is not to leave the property. And no one talks to them. Lock the gates. Now, I'll be right down." He slammed the phone down. "Sir?" Tiana asked, her voice trembling. "What is it? What's wrong?" "That was George, my head of security," Isaiah said, his voice a low, furious rumble. "Ms. Geraldine, she didn't just leave. What did she do?" Before George could escort her out, she made a phone call. From her office. To a reporter. Tiana's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh no." "That was the reporter at the front gate," Isaiah said, walking to the window and pulling back the heavy curtain. Down the long, winding driveway, Tiana could see a white van with a large satellite dish on top. What did she tell them?" Tiana whispered, her new hope turning to ice water. Isaiah turned from the window, his face grim, his eyes hard as stone. "She told them I'm a monster. She told them I'm holding a poor, sick maid and her 10-year-old daughter captive in my mansion against their will.